talk about an accelerator program. To start with, what is an accelerator program in general, and why should an early stage startup founder consider doing an accelerator program?
So from my perspective, an accelerator program is typically an early stage investor into startups. So when I talk about startups here, we're talking about businesses that can scale rapidly, usually using technology, and they're able to deliver some kind of product or service at a high margin. Essentially, adding another customer doesn't cost me too much as a startup. Now, an accelerator invests really early into startups before they've necessarily reduced all of the risk involved. Many times, it's the first time the founder has started a company. And so accelerator programs usually include some kind of programming, content, mentorship, connections. The goal there, I suppose, is in many cases, a first-time founder, you need as much of a leg up as possible. Traditionally, that might have been because your dad was the CEO of a big company, or you were able to rely on some kind of nepotism. And so I see an accelerator as almost an equalizer there. Where
Synthetic nepotism,
where a founder is able to join an accelerator, rely on as much as possible the network of the accelerator, and I suppose level up their experience. Now we can talk a little bit more about accelerator business models and kind of the different approaches, but that's my view there.
That's great. I agree. I think the best ideal of an accelerator program, it's a bubble of people and resources that wraps around you to help you build momentum around your product, your vision, your idea. And for an investor, or in this case, the university, it's an efficiency for us. We could help startup founders one by one, but there's a special magic that happens when you batch people together, not just from a pure operational efficiency, but just from the learning and the community that comes from a cohort of very ambitious people that are together. But if that's what an accelerator program is and why one might do it, when they're thinking about there's lots of choice of accelerators they could do, what's the benefits of doing an accelerator program inside the community of a university? Why do an accelerator program at a university?
So it's this interesting thing, right, where most universities have their own startup programs, and this curious idea of why would a university care about startups founded by its alumni, by its students, by its staff. And maybe 10, 15 years ago, the answer would be they don't. And universities may have been, in fact, I've heard stories of people being actively discouraged from the idea of starting a company. I think that we spoke about wrapping a network of support around founders, and I think the reason that university accelerators can be so successful is in part because of the network that they already have. So accelerators essentially rely on a network effect where the more people in your network, the more value you can add. I often like to quote some research by Mark Granovetter, The Strength of Weak Ties, which is the idea that most of your opportunity comes from people who you're not that closely connected to. And so the wider your network can be, the more weak ties you have in your network, people you don't know that well, the more opportunity is afforded to you. And so at a university with, say, for UNSW, with over 300,000 alumni, with a bunch of researchers working on incredibly interesting problems, and with 70,000 students, many of whom are coming for an entrepreneurial experience, I think the network at a university can be much stronger than if you were going to a
non-university accelerator.
I think there's another point here, which is that universities in Australia are for the most part not-for-profit institutions. We exist to serve the community in educating students, in furthering society through research. And I think there's something unique about a not-for-profit or philanthropic institution that is able to support startups without necessarily requiring a commercial return.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic point, which is a great bridge to the next question, which is why do the UNSW Startup Accelerator Program? And absolutely part of that is that we approach this craft, as you put it earlier, from the position of philanthropy, which is we are here to support you. We're accumulating both some of the university's resources to help these startup founders in the 10X Accelerator, and we're also partnering with philanthropic donors who, for the most part, have been incredibly successful founders themselves who have donated their money to the university to help the next generation. And so with that as a bit of a frame, why choose the UNSW 10X Accelerator specifically as a program?
So if an accelerator relies on and benefits from a network effect, then pick the accelerator that has the best network. And so with the frame of being philanthropically funded, incredible people like F.F. Wong, Maha Sinnathamby, Trevor Folsom, Gary Zamel, who have directly supported the 10X Accelerator, this has enabled us to grow the biggest program in Australia that I'm aware of. We can talk about things like the check size is significantly larger.
And also the terms as well. So maybe that's one huge point of difference. Most accelerators will come with an investment. What if you touch on the terms of the investment for the 2024 10X Accelerator?
Yeah, so specifically, we're investing 110,000 Australian dollars on a safe note, a simple agreement for future equity, and that's with a 15% discount and no valuation cap. Now, we can get into specifically what that means, but at a high level, that's quite a founder-friendly investment. It's meaning that you're taking less dilution than you would typically take from a commercial accelerator. So in a commercial accelerator, you might get $120,000 and the accelerator might take 8% of your company, which is, a fair investment for an accelerator. Ours is a little more generous, and that's by virtue of the fact that we are philanthropically backed. We're not here to make a commercial return.
Yeah, and the future of the Founders Program doesn't rely on investment returns. I think that's a really key piece to emphasize there. We have that financial sustainability from our philanthropic orientation that means at no point in selection for 10X does your kind of exit strategy come up. I know some investors care a lot about that and founders need to be able to talk to that, but that's not part of our metric. We're looking to back super ambitious people. We're happy to be the first investor in. We'll bring our big network to wrap around you. For the people that are listening to think, wow, maybe this program's for me, I think one thing to emphasize is great founders that we're willing to back can come from anywhere. We've had all ages, all backgrounds, all cultures. As long as you're a UNSW person for 10X, you're a staff student or alumni, at least one of the founders, you're eligible. With that kind of diversity in mind, so really it's don't count yourself out, don't assume this is not for you. What advice would you have for people applying? How can we get a lot of applications, how can they make their applications stand out when they're communicating to us that we should back them?
People think that a university accelerator is for undergraduate students. Average UNSW founder age is 46. I'll quote Gokul Chandrasekaran, the founder of JDoodle, who went through 10X in 2022. He said, "I've always had a feeling that a startup is something I can't do. It's something that people from a specific background or specific location like Silicon Valley can only do. I never thought that I could do it in Australia," right? So we've seen great founders who are scientists. We've seen great founders who are the undergrad out of uni who learns really quickly. who have 20 years of experience in industry. So my advice here is don't assume it's not for you. If you are willing to put in the insane amount of input that's required to build a startup quickly, then we'd like to talk to you.
Fantastic. What other tips might you have for people who are considering applying to the UNSW 10X Accelerator? What will make their application stand out?
An application is a document that represents one point in time. And that makes our life a little bit difficult because in many cases, we're actually looking for investors talk about lines, not dots. So we actually would like to be able to observe your velocity of progress. We'd like to be able to see over a period of time what happens for you that indicates that you're making faster progress than the 10 other people who are probably working on a similar idea. And so the more touch points you're able to have with us, and that could be through sharing a regular investor update, that could be through joining our pre-accelerator program, it could just be dropping us an email 3 weeks after the application close date to say, hey, we've had this win. Here's this milestone that we just hit. So show us some lines, not dots.
Fantastic. When you consider some of the success stories that have come through the 10X Accelerator, what are some of the companies and outcomes that come to mind?
I mentioned extraordinary inputs, and that was a half quote from Pasha Ryan, who's the founder of Forage, which is an education technology company. They work with Fortune 500 companies to produce virtual experiences, virtual job simulations, where a student is able to see what it's like to work for a day at JP Morgan, for example, create some tasks. So they've raised over $50 million US. They've helped over 4 million students get jobs, and the exciting metric is the amount by which they're able to actually increase a student's employability. So companies love them because they help them find great talent.
Are there any other kind of categories of success? I know raising, capital gets you the media headlines and everyone wants to pop champagne corks. That's kind of the start of the journey. It's an important milestone along the way for certain companies. And yes, as an outcome of the 10X Accelerator, you will be more investable, whether you raise capital or not. We can't guarantee, but a lot of companies do raise more capital post accelerator. Some bootstrap, and they sort of take the investment from the 10X Accelerator, and then they don't want to take any other investment. They're able to fuel good growth off bootstrapping. Has there been any good bootstrapping examples where kind of there's that revenue outcome from the program?
So a really great example of bootstrapping during 10X is a company called Assurance Lab. So they build software that helps companies to more effectively, more quickly pass a cybersecurity audit. And so this is it's a big pain point for growth stage companies. There's a lot of paperwork involved in something like SOC 2 compliance. And so Assurance Lab, I think they hit over 1 million ARR during the program. So they just had this incredible growth where they'd seen a pain point that businesses were willing to pay a lot of money for. And if you're building a company where the R&D is not too expensive, where the customer has high willingness to pay and the sales cycle is not going to be 3 years, then you have an opportunity to bootstrap, and that might be a better approach for you.
I think that's the other advantage of the 10X Accelerator. We're totally happy to support that. If we were a venture capital firm, we'd want you to take more of our money. We typically won't put any pressure on a company to raise more money. And so, for some startup founders, bootstrapping is an awesome pathway to go, and we're here to support those companies as well.
I think another specific category of success that is important to talk about in the context of 10X is researchers who are able to take what had been a technology, usually some applied research where they are looking to solve a specific problem for industry. They've built a solution to that problem, but the bridge from solution to product is quite big.
Huge.
And I think being an accelerator attached to a university, having worked with research founders from the very beginning, we have amazing people in our network and amazing experiences in supporting researchers to take their solution to a product. So an example of that might be a company called Contactile, started by UNSW researcher Heba Khamis, which helps robots to have a sense of touch. So if you picture a robot arm trying to pick up an egg, traditionally that might break the egg. Contactile is able to give it the pressure-sensitive sensors to be able to do those delicate tasks. Working with those kind of researchers to take their solution to a product, critical.
Absolutely. Is there any final thoughts or tips that you'd want to share, either based on sort of what the 10X program is, its benefits, or just any advice to those who are considering applying?
It's a cliche that people say, if I'd known how hard it would be, I probably wouldn't have done it. Founders often say this, and the only way that they're able to get through those difficult parts is by relying on the people around them. So however you do it, whether you rely on the synthetic nepotism of an accelerator like 10X, or whether you go it alone, it's critical as a founder to be able to maintain your strong vision, your strong conviction in what you're doing, whilst also having the curiosity and humility to recognize areas where you can benefit from someone's external expertise. Being able to juggle the tension between my strong conviction and my curiosity, I think, is a really, really important founder trait.
Yeah, so if it's through the application, the interview process, you can demonstrate really strong convictions, lightly held, that'll put them in good stead.
Most definitely.
Thanks, Lucas.
Thanks, David.